Blaney rallies to win at Daytona. The playoff field is set, minus a couple of past champions. These are our top stories on this edition of Fast Talk.
Fast Talk is presented by Toyota. For the latest Toyota Gazoo racing information, visit tgrna.com. And by Sunoco. From NASCAR to your car, Sunoco Fuel helps your car reach peak performance. Now, here's the host of Fast Talk, Doug Rice.
The 2025 NASCAR regular season, is now in our rearview mirror, and we've got a dash of 10 playoff races to decide the new champion for 2025. Hi, I'm Doug Rice, joined in studio by Alexis Erickson, and of course, Brad Gilley is along for the ride on this edition of Fast Talk. We have to devote a little bit of time to talking about Daytona, where Ryan Blaney rallied from 13th with 2 laps to go to win in sort of an Earnhardt-esque type move. And Alexis, I will give you credit. I think you spotted it with a couple of laps to go. You thought he had a shot.
Well, I mean, certainly Penske cars are known to be pretty good at these super speedway races. And I noticed that, with 5-6 laps to go, he was a little bit towards the back. And I even said to my husband watching it, what happened to Blaney? And he said, he's gotten bit on pit road a couple times. And I said, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden with like 2-3 laps to go, I see him, coming up the outside. And I said, I think Ryan Blaney might have this. And obviously it came down to the nose of the car is what he had it by. But amazing finish. I was shocked that we were able to have a finish like that in regulation, that we didn't have a lot of crashes like we normally have at those type of racetracks that gave us multiple, green, white checkers and all of that. It was a clean finish. It was a super exciting finish. And I have to say that I feel for Alex Bowman in that moment, because I think the 5 cars behind Blaney would have all tossed Alex Bowman out of playoff contention. So the anxiety had to be high on the 48 team at that moment.
Ryan Blaney pulled off a noble effort there, Brad Gilley, but it was at the expense of 6 other drivers who were in the top 10 that if they had won, they're going to the playoffs.
Hey, look, Ryan Blaney's won this race before. To Alexis' point, we know how good he is and how good Team Penske is when it comes to speedway racing. And for everyone else, Alex Bowman included, you had 25 races before Daytona to get there. And if you weren't there, you weren't there. I applaud the effort. It was a valiant effort. I actually kind of liked watching Daniel Suarez through most of the night, because it seemed like he was the one who was really aggressively trying to stay up front. But, you didn't just come up short in the 26th race of the season. You also came up short in the 25 that preceded it.
Very valid point there. I was watching Eric Estep. He's a YouTube commentator, and he referred to Blaney as a dream crusher.
A dream crusher, yeah, he did.
Okay, that's
he
pretty good.
A few. Mm-hmm.
6 of the top 10 finishers at Daytona were below the cut line. Ty Gibbs was 8th, Chris Buescher 7th, Eric Jones finished 5th. 4th went to Cole Custer. Justin Haley was 3rd place, and the runner-up was Daniel Suarez. That's what we've come to expect at Daytona and Talladega, Alexis.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think most pundits went into the week thinking we were going to have a new winner. That it would, certainly not a foregone conclusion, but one that was a pretty high percentage. And so the fact that Ryan Blaney was able to come out on top in a basically sea of non-winners, is a little bit of, something we weren't expecting to see.
Brad, we have watched these plate races over the last couple of years, and they have been these fuel-saving contests. Thankfully, we were saved from something that we had to have a strategic mind to watch, and it was just pure entertainment, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the best things I thought was when that caution came out with right around 50 to go. And they were talking about, okay, we're kind of on the edge of the fuel window. And then the caution played out a little bit more. Then we saw a good handful of teams bring their drivers in with 1 to go before we went back to green. And knowing that everyone had enough Sunoco fuel to make it to the end of the race without having to worry about saving, to me, that was the best thing I heard all night. Because if they were just on the outside edge of that, we would have seen a lot of 2-wide side-by-side racing until people thought that they were okay. But I thought that was a great thing that we didn't have that as one of the major storylines of the night.
One of the things I do admire, Alexis, is NASCAR sticking with Daytona as the final regular season race. It just works.
I agree. I think it brings, that race in particular, because you're talking about the cutoff in playoffs eligibility and all of that, produces its own drama. And then you layer on the drama of a race and a racetrack like Daytona Superspeedway, and it just provides what I think is an extremely entertaining event. And in no way were we disappointed on Saturday night. At least I wasn't, certainly.
So we're going to talk a little bit later on. We'll give you our picks for the Final Four. We'll also list the first four that we think will be eliminated from the playoffs. But, Brad, I'm curious about your thought process on this. For me, I have not felt any time this year that one team in particular or driver has planted the flag and said, this is my year, I'm going to win it all. The year Kyle Larson won it, I almost felt like it was a fait accompli that nobody was going to knock him off. Or the same back when Truex won his title. This year, the mist is really heavy.
Yeah, I would agree, and it's funny because I was talking to one of our Florida affiliates this morning, and they asked kind of the same question, is there anyone out there that's just risen above everyone else? And there's really not. There are drivers who at moments have done that. In the first 5 races of the season, you could have said, man, look at Christopher Bell. He just won 3 in a row. And then you get to a part of the season where Kyle Larson's winning a bunch and so on and so forth. But we haven't had that. If you had to ask me in the what have you done for me lately category, it would be Saturday night's winner, Ryan Blaney, because in the last 6 races, he's had an average finish better than 5th, and that team has just been on top of their game. But that's today. We still have 10 races to go to get this thing decided. Anything can happen between now and then, but there is no one who is a threat every single week at every track to take the trophy. Not one single team.
No, I don't feel like anyone has distinguished themselves that far ahead of everybody else. Some people have had good years, but
certainly.
And I think part of this is muddied up because Shane Van Gisbergen won 4 races and no one says that's going to be your title contender.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think when you look at it, and I said this before the show started, when you look at the playoff grid, I think I can make a legitimate case for pretty much everybody on that list. Like, there's only a few that I'm like, yeah, I don't know if they could make it to the next round or how far they could make it in the playoffs. I think that the field is pretty much wide open, and that's what we want to see, right? I mean, you look at history a lot of times, colors in what you're looking for in the future. And you look at Penske won with Blaney on Saturday night. And I said, oh, look at Team Penske turning on the charm right when the playoffs are getting ready to start. I've heard that story before. So I look at those cars and I think, okay, the races that we have coming up in the playoffs, these rounds, they look really, really good for Team Penske. But you can make that case for pretty much anybody in the top 16. So it's going to be a very compelling playoffs, I believe.
Let's give you right now our Toyota performance report from the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona this past Saturday. And the top finishing Toyota belonged to Eric Jones. All right, guys, I'm going to confess, I wanted to see that car in victory lane.
You don't have to confess that. I knew that before you even posted about it on X on Saturday night.
I'm just watching that, and for a guy that was a lifelong Richard Petty fan,
it's a beautiful car.
It is a beautiful car with a big STP decal on the hood. Come on, Eric. But he rallied. I got to give him credit.
He gave it a shot.
He got out of line and drifted back to about 20th, and I said, well, that's the last I'll see of him. And then on the last lap, there he is in that shot of 4-wide finish. So the top finishing Toyota was Eric Jones in the Dollar Tree STP Toyota. Ty Gibbs was 8th, Christopher Bell 13th, 17th to John Hunter Nemechek. Tyler Reddick was 21st, 23rd to Chase Briscoe. Denny Hamlin, rough night for a guy that usually scoots around Daytona pretty well, was 25th, 37th to Bubba Wallace, and Riley Herbst. He was 40th. And that is our Toyota Performance Report. That's our Toyota Performance Report brought to you by Toyota. For the latest Toyota Gazoo racing information, visit tgrna.com. If you happen to be following us on Facebook or one of our channels, we'll flash up a picture here. There is the finish of the race. Brad, is that not a beautiful sight? That should be NASCAR's publicity shot going forward, a 4-wide finish with all of these also ran cars in the picture.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And I mean, that's like 41 100ths of a second from Ryan Blaney to Cole Custer. who ended up finishing fourth. That is incredible. Whenever your nose is in front of the rear quarter panel of the winning car and you finish fourth, that says everything about just how exciting that was. And to Alexa's point earlier, they didn't wreck. It went green all the way to the start-finish line. That was awesome.
I saw somebody posted on X, and I'm sorry that I don't remember who it was to give them credit, but they posted that picture and they just said, hang it in the Louvre. And I was like, yeah, that's where it should go for sure.
And that was the best plate type race we've seen
in a long time.
In a long time. I think Jeff Gluck's poll was at 88%. This was a good race. My problem is the other 12%. It said it wasn't.
Yeah, well, you can't make everybody happy. We've been doing this for a long time, Doug.
Yeah.
And that when it comes to especially social media, you're going to have naysayers. It's just part of the deal.
Not very scientific.
Yeah, not very scientific.
There must be a lot of people living under bridges.
Yeah,
because that's where trolls hang out.
And I think too sometimes like that poll itself, like there are some people that will rate that poll based off of like how they felt, how entertaining they felt the race was. But then you have other people say, oh, well, Chase Elliott didn't win, so I didn't like it. Or Ryan Blaney won, so yeah, I loved it because my driver won, or vice versa. So as Brad said, and it's been done for a long time, and you can go back and look at the trends of it up and down and all around, but it's not super scientific.
So I posted this also on X that Sunday morning getting ready to go to church, Penny, my wife, looks at me. She didn't say cute. She goes, that Ryan Blaney's real easy on the eyes.
Easy on the eyes.
I realized that. And then somebody else in response to that post, hashtag Moms for Blaney. And I thought, okay, that's more than I needed to know, Moms for Blaney. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back and dissect who's going to be the first 4 eliminated.
Here's what you missed last week on Toyota Gazoo Racing. Bubba was totally as he around the pack, managing to across the finish line to claim the in victory lane. Now you're up to speed. You in? Follow the action at tgrna.com. Toyota, let's go places. NASCAR is a registered trademark of the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, LLC.
When it comes to maintaining your engine to run at peak performance, trust Z-Max Micro Lubricant. Z-Max soaks into metal, so it's easy to add to your oil or gas to disperse carbon buildup in your engine, fuel system, and transmission. Protect your vehicle's engine to the max with Z-Max. Check us out at zmax.com or visit us on Facebook and Twitter to find out more about our full line of products. Remember the name Z-Max for your car, big rig, small engines, firearms, and more. That's Z-Max Micro Lubricant.
This is Christopher Bell, and you're listening to PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Get your NASCAR fix with PRN's Garage Pass.
It's hard to just turn it around in 1 week, but I wouldn't be shocked if we did.
I don't think the results have been what we have hoped for or expected, but I think the potential in the cars and the speed has been pretty good.
It's a big deal already, so that's a big positive for us. So I think now it's just about working together and getting better.
I think the Penske cars are still elite when it comes to plate racing.
Hi, I'm Mark Garrow, tracking the latest racing news every weekday.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Before we give you our first 4 out picks, Alexis, during the break you were talking, not only was this a nice win for Blaney, his 3rd win of the year, but it made a big difference in the final standings heading into the playoffs between himself and Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, I mean, and you had mentioned Denny Hamlin, having a bad night, and it was more than just a bad night for him because he dropped 3 positions in the regular season standings and lost because of that, a chunk of playoff points. And Blaney ended up finishing second in the regular season standings, giving him 10 on top of, what he got for winning the race. So it was a huge leap forward for Blaney. And unfortunately, points left on the board for Denny Hamlin.
So we'll see if those come back to haunt him a little bit later on. Brad Gilly, I can only remember, I think it might have been last year, we were picking our first outs, and you and I both, I think, flushed Joey Logano.
Yeah, I think so.
Because he got in on a technicality, and then he ain't going to do anything. So using that as a backdrop.
I would say I had Logano going out and Blaney staying in, and it was the exact opposite of what happened right there. And they were last year at this time tied just above the cut line. I think they were 8 points above the cut line, and they were sitting, I guess, seeded 10th and 11th respectively. And yeah, I don't know that. Well, look, some people saw it coming. I don't want to say that no one did, but it just felt like the way the trend was going at the time was not going to take us there with Joey Logano, in spite of having won a handful of races and an all-star race in the regular season last year.
All right, Brad, let's try to make up for last year. We'll let you go first. Give us the first 4 candidates that you think are most likely to be eliminated. And obviously in this, we're going to have some repetition. There's no way to avoid that.
I would agree. So my first 4 out are going to be Josh Berry, Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric, and Tyler Reddick. And I know Tyler Reddick's got a strong team. They're good at Darlington and all of that, but I just, I think you got to take a good one out, and I don't know that they're playing at the top of their game right now.
All right. Dillon, Berry, Cindric, Tyler Reddick for one Brad Gilly. Alexis Erickson, what are you thinking about over there? What's your Grim Reaper predictions here?
It's funny because you were sitting in the studio with me as I was trying to make this decision, and I was struggling with it quite a bit because as I said in the opening segment, I really do believe that there could be a path for most of the drivers that are in the playoffs, and so trying to pick, look, there's going to be mistakes made. Obviously, you guys last year with Joey Logano. But just going off of my gut, I've got my first 4 out are Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Austin Dillon, and Austin Cindric. I just feel like we haven't seen much from Ross since the Coca-Cola 600 win. Bubba has had some mistakes in the last few weeks, and I just feel like his headspace might not be in the right place at the moment. Austin Dillon, he had a fantastic Richmond race. We all know that, but his body of work for the year of 2025 hasn't been super impressive to me. And even though Austin Cindric is on Team Penske, and I think that this playoff sets up the best for Team Penske out of any organization there is, I just am not sure he's going to be the one, moving forward after the first round.
So if you're keeping score at home, write these down, and then you can remind us how far off base we are. Later on.
Yes.
Here are my first 4 out, and some of these are duplicated by what you and Brad have already said. Ross Chastain, I don't think he makes it. Berry, Dillon, and Wallace. First, Bubba Wallace. I'm going to go with what you said, Alexis. I think this guy is so sensitive to being in the moment. And he looked really crushed after Daytona, a place where he could have easily have won, but he didn't. If he can shuck that, maybe he gets out of it. I'm not liking what I've seen the last couple of races from Bubba Wallace. Josh Berry, great win earlier in the year at Vegas. Since then, they've had some nice runs, but their finishes have just not been strong enough. So Josh Berry, don't think you make it. Austin Dillon, if there were 9 more races